All right, everybody. Hopefully you guys can hear me. We'll probably wait one more minute just to let one or two people kind of drag in here. But welcome to the Q&A for educators. My name is Jake. I'm one of the horticulturists here at Cropking. And we're putting this together just to kind of give you some times to kind of get to know us and to ask some questions about your current projects or what we do here, and kind of like this. We are recording this, so we will be putting this video up on our YouTube channel. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. Luckily, we have two boxes. We have the Q&A box and the chat box. We would highly recommend you guys put your questions in the Q&A box. If you're not familiar with Zoom, it's just going to be the part on the top of your ribbon. You can select Q&A and then you type in your questions there. But I'll also be monitoring the chat if you put your questions there. The other person on the line today is Dave. Dave, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, how are you guys doing? My name is Dave Langlois, also with Cropking, and I'm specialized in school sales. So we're excited to have you here. And for anyone that has any questions or follow-up afterwards, certainly I'm going to make sure my contact information is available at the end so that you can have that.
Yep. So Dave is our sales guy that does a lot of the dealing directly with schools. So when you guys get to the whole, asking and ordering parts, you're going to directly deal with Dave. But when it comes to technical advice or like system design or some of the other fun projects like that, that's kind of where I get involved. So with that, I know we do have a few questions that we had gotten emailed before this topic or the whole session got put together. And so we kind of go with there. Just for your information, this one we started is just for teachers, but we do have these Q&A sessions every 2 weeks. So if you don't get a chance to your question gets answered today, or you come up with one afterwards, because that always happens, feel free to join us. And the information about our other Q&A sessions are on our website. So with that, I will go with the first question we got. And the first question we got emailed in is having to do with how often or do we change the water in our systems? So I'm going to start off and I'll take that one. So a lot of our systems we mainly deal with two different types of hydroponic systems. We deal with what we call NFT or nutrient film, and then we also deal with Bead buckets or Dutch bucket systems. In a small setting, so like in a school or indoors classroom, we would definitely design the Bead bucket system to be what we call the closed loop system, meaning the water that goes to the plants will come and be collected back into a reservoir, and then that water is recirculated through the plants on a timer. That one we will dump every usually 2 weeks. The biggest thing with that is the plants are taking out the different nutrients that they need from that fertilizer mix. And so every 2 weeks we want to make a fresh batch, so that way we get the right amount of nutrients and chemicals going to all the plants that way. Now in an NFT system, that's a continuous flow system. And again, that one, we have a reservoir, so the nutrients constantly go past the plants, and we collect that nutrient from there. That we also dump every 2 weeks. So yes, on a commercial scale, we do a couple other different techniques with that, but that was definitely a good question we got. Also, the other question that we had received was what kind of products and things do we offer here at Cropking? So I'm going to let Dave start with that one, and we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. Yeah, so at Cropking, we are able to supply you with absolutely everything that you need, kind of a full spectrum of supplies. that you would need to be successful. And in fact, one of the things that we like to do is if you're going to be setting up a hydroponic program based off of a grant, is to be able to supply you with everything that you'll need for the entire year, projecting out what you'll need in advance, from the substrate like rock wool to your nutrients to even sticky cards for pest control and IPM, to the different meters and just trays and even down to just absolutely everything you need, even down to the seeds. So we can offer pretty much everything that you would need.
Yep. And we've been in this, if you're not really familiar with Cropking, we've been in this business for almost 40 years doing controlled environment eggs. So everything from greenhouses to indoor setups. We primarily manufacture greenhouses and hydroponic systems, but we also work with all sorts of different suppliers for parts and pieces. So you can kind of think of us as a kind of one-stop solution. We can get you whatever you need to make a functioning greenhouse or an individual hydroponic lab if you're going to do it on the inside part. So that's kind of a good option we have.
Yeah, that's right. I just want to kind of add into that because we've been around for almost 40 years, we've kind of got the whole program dialed down. We really understand what growers need, and we have specialized in small, mid-sized growers, even large growers. But just because we've been around for 40 years doesn't mean that we don't stop innovating and coming in and looking at new solutions. And one of the exciting parts of my job personally is working with teachers who are promoting hydroponics, either from using it from a science perspective or a CTE perspective. And we're able to kind of know what's coming online, what's the kind of the newest, the latest and greatest in techniques and equipment and technology, and be able to help you kind of apply some of those things to the curriculum or programs that you're working on in your schools. So we have kind of that long history, but we're also just very forward focused and looking at it and excited about what hydroponics can offer in the future.
Yep. One other question I had sent forward before the session started was, can you kind of explain the difference between education and then commercial like viability? So we get this one quite a bit, and that is when you're doing a hydroponic system, setting it up, I know everybody gets super excited and they're like, okay, this system's going to feed the whole entire cafeteria or the whole school system or something like that. That's a different set of objectives and design compared to more of the education and teaching part. And so there's definitely differences between those two kind of goals. And that's kind of the idea why we're having this question and answer session and introducing myself and Dave to you guys, is so we can kind of work through what goals you have and kind of what you want the systems or design of the whole project to work on. So the idea, if you're doing it for let's say we're going to feed the cafeteria, that's going to be something we're in a large scale system, pretty uniform, pretty strict, where we say, okay, we're going to produce X amount of pounds a week. We do so many rotations for each plant, kind of a very follow a set known schedule like what we do for a lot of our commercial growers. When it comes to the education part, that and the experience, that's a lot more tailored to smaller systems with different add-on features, so that way kids can learn about mixing fertilizer and plant management, and even like what kind of different lights affect the plant growth. So that's kind of just a easy explanation of that question, but we definitely want to work with people to kind of help meet their goals and their needs for their units. And sometimes you have two very different ways from when you come with your needs to what it actually evolves out to be. And so always keep that in mind. So our first live question we got is, can you grow different kind of plants at the same system?
Yes.
Answer is definitely yes. So the idea behind hydroponics, especially the Bedo buckets, you can grow whatever you want in those buckets. And so I actually have an example bucket here. I brought my collection of toys with me. So in case anybody isn't familiar, what a Beto bucket is, it is a plastic bucket. It's injected molded. And what it does is it sits, and let's see if I can get the camera right. So it sits down, and then right here, this little nub acts as a drain. So whatever water the plant doesn't need actually drains out of the bucket because there's a little elbow inside. This is what that elbow looks like. And so that way it maintains how much water is maintained in that bucket. And that way we can collect the water that the plants don't use. But because of that style of system, we can grow anything large in these buckets. So we're talking cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, hops, carrots, cabbage, broccoli, pretty much anything. And then these buckets are filled with different types of substrate inside. For our smaller plants or faster turnaround plants, that's when we get into more of the channels or the NFT, and that would be where we're growing lettuce, herbs, mint, leafy greens, kale, spinach, and based on whatever you're trying to goal is for growing, we can mix and match. And so we have two real fertilizers, one focused on leafy greens and one focused on vine or large crops. And so, yes, you can intermix the different plants in the different systems. We just kind of focus where we have a special recipe for feeding, like, you know, the larger crops, so tomato, cucumbers, peppers, and that's what we would use for those plants rather than something that we would use for like a lettuce or a basil plant. But very good question. So make sure you guys keep the questions coming. That way we can cover as much as possible in this hour we've got with you guys. So if not, while we're waiting for you guys to type up a bunch of questions, I'm going to show you some of the other parts since I mentioned NFT. So NFT stands for nutrient film technique. And the way that works is we use a channel to have the water splash over the roots of the plants. And so our channel, we have 3 different sizes that is made here. They're all food grade PVC. And so here is the, what we call like the 375 channel. And so this channel, you can see down here, is designed so the way water comes right down the middle. And then you see this end cap right here. This is where the water will leave the channel and get recollected back to where the pump is going to go. And so we have this channel that we use for like herbs, lettuce, you know, full size heads of plants we're going to grow. And then when you want to start seedlings or microgreens, we have this channel, which is wider. It perfectly fits a 1020 tray inside of here. And so this is really good for doing like starting of plants or a nursery area for your other systems. So these are really 2 options you can use. And then the top covers come in all sorts of different lengths and configurations where you want your holes. So standard for us commercial growers is 8 inches, but we can punch and make holes for a top cover any size you want. So here's an example of a top cover. And so these literally slap or snap right onto the channel. So if you can see that part, they completely go on. And the cool thing about the top cover and the channel is it closes itself. So when you're in a greenhouse or a indoor environment, your channels don't get full of algae. But when it times to clean, it's just 2 pieces. You can literally take the part off, wipe down your channel, put your plants back in it, and then start over. So the biggest thing with hydroponics is keeping things clean and organized, and that will really improve your plant health.
That's right.
So I got a question that came up, and it is best fish for the aquaponics system.
Yeah, that's a good question. So aquaponics is a lot of fun and gives you a lot of room for exploration and finding out all sorts of different things about how the system works, and gives you a lot of kind of a wide variability. I can say that there's a ton of different types of fish that work really well, and there's some fish that don't work really well in aquaponics. myself, I've grown tilapia, bluegill, baitfish, and catfish. Tilapia is the kind of gold standard. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is it does really well in varied conditions, both pH and temperature changes. And that's really important, especially if you got a smaller system, because if you got not a lot of water mass, you're going to have higher or faster swings of temperature and pH. And so you want a fish that's going to be pretty susceptible to those environmental changes. And then second about the tilapia, which is nice, is that when it excretes in kind of a casing, which makes the filtration a little bit easier for the water to be filtered out, and means more or minimal cleaning or less cleaning. And then lastly is that it's a nice edible fish, and there's a market for it. So people are familiar with tilapia in that regard. There's other fish, there's barramundi, which is fairly popular for commercial, just because it's an exotic fish. It's Australian, does really well. And then the bait fishes, or the cold water game fishes like bluegill do okay. But when you get into some more of the larger game fishes that are going to need a higher protein diet, then you kind of get more restricted because of feeding and finding food sources that have the high protein that they need. I have successfully grown catfish this year, and I was really surprised. They excrete a kind of a more of a liquidy excrement, so it's harder for the filters to clean out. But I was able to work with the system and be able to get it to work, and it worked out fine. They're very hardy, so I was surprised by that. And they don't actually eat a whole lot either, compared to tilapia.
Yeah.
But if you got a small system, just goldfish are great. I would be careful about goldfish or bait fish if you go to like a bait shop to get fish because of disease. And if you get a little bit of disease in the system, it can wipe them out very quickly. So just to be cautious about that. If you go to like for a small system, a pet store, just make sure that the fish are good quality and good health. See what else is there. Can you think of anything else on that, Jake?
No, you got it. We also do have, and I like to mention, we do have an aquatic biologist on staff here at the office.
Yeah, good point.
We have 4 or 5 tech guys. Usually at least 2 or 3 of us are around to answer questions. And that's one of the the benefits of Cropking is our knowledge base. So if you have a specific question, about your aquaculture system or any of the stuff, you can call us in and we can help troubleshoot your stuff. And so that's kind of, we're here to help you guys and make sure everything is successful for you. So that's one point I wanted to make about the fish.
Yeah.
Next question, woohoo, we're getting all sorts of questions now, was how often do you clean your channels? So the answer is cleaning the channels is done at the time of harvest. So at the time of harvest, we got a video, again, with lots of videos and information on our YouTube channel. You just YouTube and search for Cropking. But anyways, when we clean the channels, it's just a soft sponge with a little soapy water. And wipe it down, rinse it off, and then you're ready to go. Less than a couple seconds to channel, and you're ready to work. And channels will last 15, 20 plus years. So as long as you take care of them and clean them, they should last you a long time. When you say small system, what size do you mean? So we do systems as small as a desktop unit, which would take up I believe that one is 8 inches by like 13 inches, all the way up to, a 4.6, which is a couple feet, 4 feet by 4 feet, and all the way up that way. So we do all sorts of different size systems. We have a catalog of like off-the-shelf kits or off-the-shelf size systems ready to go. And we also do lots of custom work too. So any size you can think of.
Yeah. And if that question was in reference to the aquaponics, I would say anything for a classroom, anything less than 100 gallons would be a small system. Very common are like, 25 to, I guess, 50 gallon tanks. You see a lot in classrooms. So I would consider that to be small. And with hydroponics, that reservoir size, the same principle kind of applies, that a smaller reservoir is just going to mean higher, faster swings with pH and nutrients. You have a larger system, it's more stable. and it's going to be a little bit easier also to operate. So when you're looking at different sizes of systems, whether it be hydroponic or aquaponics, that's just something to kind of keep in mind as you're looking at those sizes. If the space is available and you can go with a higher amount of water or larger quantity of water, then you're going to be it's a little less work for the output that you get.
Yep. Next question says, I have a question about controlled environment. Okay, you're in the right spot. In a basement garden, I'm concerned about humidity and heat building up in my system. I plan to atmospherically envelope the garden and use fans plus power venting to exchange the air outside, drop the temperature, lower the humidity. I know nothing about controls that could drive the logic of the system. Do you recommend something for that? The short answer to that is yes. There's all sorts of different environmental controllers. We work with several different companies. It all depends on how big of a space and how many pieces of equipment we want to control. And so they do make simple controllers that will control, one or two pieces, maybe a vent and a fan, all the way up to like an Link 4 makes an iGrow 14 and 1800. That's what we'd be controlling up to like a large commercial greenhouse. And so it all depends on how many pieces of equipment we want to control and what the goal is inside of there. A lot of the environmental equipment uses some sort of a weather station or sensor in the room to help us determine what to do. So example, it's going to measure a lot of times temperature, humidity, and light, and then make decisions based on those measurements. So you could say, if my humidity is above, 75%, open up a vent to start getting rid of air. Or, if it's below 60 degrees, you could turn on a heater, or, turn your lights on and off for so many hours a day. So automation, especially indoors or in a greenhouse, there's lots of answers to that. And so it's just let us know. We can work with you to figure out a controller that would work best for your situation. And there's come a long ways too. There's a lot of stuff now. I know, particularly with another school up the road from us, they were really interested in monitoring all the growing parameters in their hydroponic classroom. And they also wanted it to be able where they could look at it online. So there's a lot of online integration now where you can look at different sensors using the internet and checking on things even though you're not physically in the room, which is kind of nice. So great question. Next question, how does an aquaponic system compare to a tower garden? Which is the more efficient system? So
good question.
That is a very good question. So the idea behind aquaponics is you got three separate, if you think about it, three separate systems that you're working on. So one is the fish, and you can think of them as your little bioreactor. They're eating food and excrement waste. And then there's the bacteria that turns that waste into a form of nitrogen that the plants can take. And then the plants act as like a giant filter and takes that stuff out of the water so that way it doesn't become hazardous to the fish. And so because of that, we have three steps. In a tower garden or something like that, a lot of times they don't have that extra biofilter, that area needed for the bacteria to live. And so that's kind of the biggest thing, the difference between a large commercial like aquaponic system versus those tower systems. And it's all based on ease of use too. So for example, on our systems, those filters, there's a nice drain where we can clean it out because those the filter, which has the bacteria in there, will have like what we call bio balls or some sort of area in there for that bacteria to live on. And that needs to be cleaned on a regular basis. And so just ease of use of those kind of systems kind of helps. The biggest thing is we're trying to balance three things at the same time. So keeping fish healthy, keeping bacteria healthy, and keeping the plants healthy. And so as long as everything is playing well, the efficiency is great. But I will tell you that doing an aquaponic system inherently is a little bit more challenging than just a simple fertilizer-based hydroponic system where we're just using either a natural organic fertilizer or a chemical-based fertilizer to grow the plants. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I would just add from a teaching perspective, from a school's perspective, um, each system, whether it be hydroponics or aquaponics, has different educational benefits. So, for example, it's easy to or easier to teach the nitrogen cycle through like the aquaponics. Um, so there's kind of pros and cons to both, but then there's also something to weigh in not just how or what is taught by the system, is who's operating the system. And so, when you incorporate live fish, that means you're going to need to be dedicated to keeping that system operating through breaks, through summer, if you can. So it's going to take a little bit more hands-on, whereas with the hydroponic system, you can shut that down over Christmas break and start it back up again a little bit easier than you would that aquaponics. So there's kind of those pros and cons. So there's different kind of things that you can teach with from sustainable agriculture to the nitrogen cycle to just many of those different lesson plans. So you kind of want to balance those two things: the availability and um, the interest that that you as a teacher have with the system versus what you want to accomplish. And and I think we can have that. You can call us. We can have that conversation and figure out what kind of works best for you. But in the end, if you like to tinker, aquaponics is great because it's just endless tinkering. Whereas hydroponics is often just you get what you put in. What you put in is what you get. It's pretty precise and dependable. So for a very busy classroom or teacher situation, hydroponics can be really advantageous in that regard. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yep, and I like the point you brought up too about ease of use on weekends and vacations. So in the hydroponics side, we can automate pretty much everything other than harvest and seeding plants on a school size scale. On a commercial scale, we can automate everything, but just having something like what we call the Controller, which literally monitors your water chemistry. So it's water monitoring the pH, the EC, and the temperature. So pH is how acidic the water is, and EC is how much fertilizer is in the water, and it naturally corrects it based on what that computer's seeing. So you could set up a system where literally once it's up and running hydroponically, it kind of takes care of itself. Granted, you got to make sure that there's fertilizer in the fertilizer concentration area, and then of course you need stuff for the pH adjustment, but the systems and water, but the system can kind of be on coast mode for 1 or 2 days if you're not around. So kind of keep that in mind too. I know that's something that factors in, especially when it comes to schools, that you're not there every day of the week. So keep that in mind when you're building out or working on your systems. So next question I got says, do you balance water temperature? Is this important? I'm going to take it from the perspective of the plants, and then Dave can do the one of the fish. So water temperature is super important. So the idea is we assume whatever your air temperature is, so in your room or in a greenhouse, that's about what the water temperature is going to be. Most plants need the temperature to be about 80 or less. And that's because at 80 degrees, the air that's in the water, there's just not enough oxygen actually dissolved in that water. And so what we try and do is keep that water below 80 degrees. And there's many ways to do that. In a greenhouse, what we do is we put that tank in the ground, and that helps insulate that water. So that way in the summertime, it stays cooler. In the wintertime, it stays warmer. Indoors, we can use some sort of like a chiller, or just by keeping that tank and refreshing water with it more often will help keep it cooler. So yeah, we pay attention to water temperature a lot, especially when it comes to the hydroponic side.
Yeah, and fish, it's very important. Going back to the tilapia example, tilapia, they can operate or live in water temperatures between 55 and 85 degrees, kind of the higher end. But you can kind of push that with those fish as well, going a little bit lower and a little bit higher as well. But when you stress them out, then you're subjecting them to disease or low production. So if in a commercial operation, you want to make it sure it's nice and precise, so that when they're metabolizing their food, that it's a 1-to-1 ratio in grow out. But with in a school, that there's going to be some variability with the classroom. If it's in a classroom, there will be less variability in the classroom than it would be, say, in a school greenhouse, where the water temperature is going to go and fluctuate. So that's where that tilapia really kind of shines, is a fish that's going to tolerate those high spikes of temperature in the summer and those lows in the winter. So you kind of do want to match your fish to what you want to grow. So for example, if you're growing something, maybe you're growing generally in the winter or a cooler time, you can match, something like trout. It's a little more finicky, hard to grow, but it does well in colder water, and then match that with nice lettuce. Or go with something like tilapia that likes the hotter water or warmer water, with something like basil in the summer. So you can kind of mix and match your fish depending on what you're growing, which is great. But yes, to answer the question, to keep it stable is the best, and to kind of match that those targets to the fish species that you're growing.
Yeah. Next question. I get this one quite a bit. I have an NFT Invader system, and I have problems with solids building up in the emitters and plugging the small lines. The NFT valves at the end of the channel I have been able to clear with a small wire, but haven't been able to clear the beta emitters. Suggestions. So, first thing I would say is, if the system's got lots of algae, or you've accidentally sucked up a bunch of fertilizer that wasn't dissolved, that could be the problem of your clogs in your system. So if it's algae, it's a simple change the water. We recommend changing the water usually every 2 weeks. I at home do it every week, and so that kind of helps doing it that way. If it is a fertilizer issue, that one's going to take a little bit more cleaning. There's some products out there that will help clean that from the lines. Obviously, they're not great to use with plants in the system, and so you would want to make sure there's no plants in the system and run that stuff through. The emitters themselves, especially like the beta emitters, are the emitters we use for the beta system, are actually outdoor rated emitters you use in the landscape. So they're designed to last several years. And so what we can do is put through some cleaning material. One product I really like is called HypoGrow. It's a stabilized chlorine product. And we can use that in a higher concentration, and that will help clear up your irrigation lines and all your parts that way. That's probably what I would suggest to kind of clean those pieces and parts up. But really good question.
Yeah, and I would just say too, when you're using those products, it's just something good to do at the beginning of the year as a preventative every year if you're starting up the system. And then also don't be shy of just flushing the system with straight water for a while too, without any of the nutrients. That to me, that's been a very helpful thing. So every 2 weeks for a couple days, just doing straight water is fine, and it keeps those emitters clear.
Yeah. Next question I see is, I'd like to grow some bigger plants like holy basil and kale in a flood and drain 12-inch deep media aquaponic system. I've seen that at harvest there'll be a big mess of roots to separate from media. Is there equipment that can help with the root separation?
Redworm wigglers.
Yeah, that would help. The biggest thing with the clay balls or any of those kind of growing media that you have in those aquaponic system is you're using that also as a source to help hold bacteria, and it's a living ecosystem. So anytime you pull those roots out, you're kind of disrupting it. And yes, you're going to have a kind of an issue or cleanliness with it. What you could always do is take those roots and let them dry out for a while. So if you have extra clay balls, you just constantly refilling your area and do it that way. And that way, once those things dry out, the roots literally just flake off and you can throw them back in that way. But you can do larger size plants in the NFT channels. I do a lot of kale in my own system. It works out really well. And so that's an option too, if you want to do it that way. But yeah, there's no specific product specifically designed for cleaning that kind of material at the moment. Next question, best way to start plants for Beto bucket system. Direct seed into a bucket, rock wool then transplant, Jiffy pellets then transplant into buckets. So all the rock wool or all of our stuff that's going in the Beto buckets or the channels need some sort of media to hold that seed for the seed to sprout and to get it started. So I've got an example of rock wool right here. And so what's nice about the rock wool is it comes with holes pre-formed in there. And so you'll get this rock wool wet, and then you'll put the seed right inside of here. And then we recommend the first 24, 36 hours, you put this in the dark. And then after that, you expose it to light. And then those plants will take off real easy. Once they get growing, the rock wool is very easy to separate. You can see it just kind of breaks apart. And then you would plant that directly into your material you're using, perlite, cocoa, whatever. Jiffy Pots also work. There's lots of options out there. There's Oasis, which is more of a polyethylene, or trying to remember. It's more of a like a sponge material that you can use. And so there's all sorts of different things for starting the small plants. So, and yeah, if you want to do just rock wool comes in all sorts of sizes. So it's not uncommon for us to start the tomatoes in a small size and then move them up to larger cubes. So good question with that one. I saw another question / comment. Great, I didn't know I could grow large plants in NFT. Yeah, so the biggest thing with the NFT is we usually go for plants that are gonna be around for 90 days or less. The biggest problem with growing plants or long-term in an NFT channel is we don't want the roots to get so thick that it fills up this space in the channel. Because the whole idea how this system works is as water is running down this channel, which would be at this exact kind of angle, comes in this side, goes down, and then comes out the spouted end. That water is causing little micro splashes over the roots like this. And that's how the water dissolves air. And so that way we don't actually use any aeration equipment in an NFT system because those micro splashes is enough where the plant roots won't drown. Now, if you get to really thick roots where they fill up this whole channel, if the plants have been around for a long time, you can have issues with the plants not getting enough air that way. And obviously, if you go very tall plant, if the channel accidentally tips one way or the other, that could also affect the water flow inside of here. But yeah, you can do plants. We have basil, we have some herbs that are just naturally slow growing. Lavender's one, we'll do like decent sized heads of lavender inside an NFT channel. So good question with that one.
Yeah, Swiss chard does well in an NFT. That grows fairly large. Dill grows pretty large. Some plants like parsley are going to grow a big fat tuber kind of root in its mass. So you have to be careful about that because it'll clog the tray. Strawberries grow a nice big thick root mat as well, but you don't be afraid to get in there and just cut it out. Just trim it with a pair of clippers, and that'll help kind of keep the plant under control.
All right.
It won't kill the plant.
Next question.
All right.
What do you know about environmental pros and cons of aeroponics? And then it says in parentheses, asking for a research project. Does it require more or less water? And do you know how its carbon emissions compare to traditional agriculture? So there's a lot to unpack in that one question. I could probably talk for a couple hours on that, but I'm going to keep it short. Pros of aeroponics is a higher amount of air in that solution. Like we talked about, 80 degrees is where physics takes over, and more oxygen, you can't get it to dissolve in liquid. So the idea with aeroponics is you can run a solution warmer just because it's getting sprayed. So it naturally has more air into it. The biggest con with aeroponics is more moving parts because you have some sort of misting area and chambers and stuff like that. And then the other part where it says, does it require more water or less? It's going to require slightly less. But the biggest thing with any of these styles and techniques, so hydroponics, aquaponics, aeroponics, we're going to be more efficient on the water and nutrients we're using because we're directly giving them to the plant when the plant needs them and in the amount that they want, compared to traditional ag where you're outside and have soil conditions to deal with. And so that's kind of the short nitty-gritty answer to that. Again, if you have any of these kind of questions, you can feel free to call us. We're here all the time to help answer questions. And the biggest thing with Cropking is we're huge into education, hence why we do these kind of workshops like this. In normal times, you guys could have the opportunity to come here and visit us. And we do a 2-day grower workshop where you get to spend some time with the systems that we talk about and in a commercial greenhouse and also go over stuff. We've kind of condensed that down to like a 1-day workshop and it's online. Next one or last one for this year, I can't believe it's already November, will be November 18th. So if you want to get some real in-depth knowledge on greenhouses and some of our systems, you can sign up for that one. There's a slight cost to that, but that one's coming up on November 18th. So just kind of as a reminder, if you want more detail, especially getting into issues like that last question. So with that, we've got another question that came up. Is a hydroponic system what causes your plants to grow spindly? Would water quality be the issue? I love this question. Spindly plants can be 2 reasons. One, it's either environmental, or 2, it's nutritional. So environmental would be, is it too hot? Is it too cold? Is it like super humid in there? A lot of times spindly plants are caused by lack of light or something wrong with the fertilizer or nutrition for it. The biggest thing is if you've got spindly plants, they're probably lime green too. And so that means if the plant's suffering from lack of light, if the plant can't photosynthesize, it can't take up the nutrition we have. So it's usually a compound of multiple things going on. So a lot of times pictures, especially for us here in the office, if you have pictures, you can send it to us. We diagnose insect and plant problems all the time. I think one day we added it all up. There's probably almost 150 years of hydroponic experience and agricultural experience here in the office between us tech guys. And so there's only a few things, it's really hard to stump us, let's put it that way. We've seen a lot of things. And so feel free, especially with your question there, if you've got question or something that doesn't look right, feel free to take a picture and get it to myself or Dave. We can help you out with that one. So, but usually it's light. That's hard to go with that. All right, next one. I've read that plants at the head of the NFT channel will get more nutrients than the plants at the end. Do I need to rotate them?
Generally, the nutrients is fine. From my experience, it's water temperature. So with an NFT channel, the water temperature is going to be cooler when it first comes into the channel, and then it's going to be warmer by the time it gets to the end. That's why a lot of channels are shorter than 10, 12 feet. So I would say it could be that you just need to cool the water, and then making sure that water is nice and cold and oxygenated, and then you shouldn't see too much trouble. The other problem that I've seen is where they have put larger plants in the back that might be blocking light out from smaller plants too. That could be another thing that would inhibit growth. So just being careful on your spacing if you're doing other plants or timing wise when you're planting.
The other one too, and I see this occasionally, is the pitch of the channel. So if you don't have good flow going through that channel, the key is you don't want any stagnant water sitting in the channel. And so if the pitch isn't right, the plants could accidentally start sitting in water, and they actually will drown, is the best way of putting it, because they're not getting enough air. Plants don't there's only certain plants that have adapted to live in complete water. And so by using NFT, we're trying to keep that water moving so that way we get air to those roots. So that's the biggest thing. Usually it's not a nutrient issue, but it's more of an air temperature, oxygen issue. It says your answers are very helpful. Thank you. What number works best? I'm sure I can find it online. The phone number here is, I'll post it in the comments question, and so that way everybody can have it. I'll also make sure we put an email down there so you can have it. So that's the easiest way to do it. But yeah, it's all over our website and all of our stuff. Not hard to find us out. But yep, good question with that. Next question. I'm in Carlton City Schools. Do you do site visits for equipment you sold? And then it goes on to says, I have a 540 hydroponic system, 200-gallon aquaponic, 24-bucket system. We're getting everything together, but want to make sure we have it correct. Is there a cost? So in normal times, yes, we do have a cost for us to come out and do stuff. Thanks to COVID and all that stuff, we're not really traveling at the time, but we can do a lot of this stuff and do a lot of things over the phone. I mean, we've built thousands and thousands of systems all over the world in many different countries. And so we can definitely walk you through turning things on and doing stuff over the phone or FaceTime or Zoom like we're doing right now. And so that would probably work out best for you. In your particular case, you can feel free. You probably have been working with a specific salesman, and they can get your information, and we can set something up with you to make sure that we can help you guys out. Again, we're here to help you out throughout the whole process. We really recommend you guys call us a lot. It's the first year we get a lot of questions. Usually people feel pretty good. It's that second and third year where they think they've got it under control and we don't really hear from them. And so that's what we're here for. Again, there's several of us tech staff. Dave's really knowledgeable. All the salespeople are really knowledgeable. Feel free to use us as information, a source of resources, because we want you guys to be successful, especially in the school system. We want these systems to succeed so you can keep them running and do all the teaching and different educational classes that you guys offer for it. So I know that was probably a long answer to your question, but yeah, we'll definitely help you out with that one. So it is 3:47 by my official timekeeper here on the East Coast. We're going to be here for like 13 more minutes. We got caught up on all of our questions, so hopefully your keyboards are flying. Woohoo! Look at that. Just when I say we need more questions, one shows up. Okay, it says, for a smallish size system of 300 square feet of grow space, do you think a bead filter is a good investment versus using a simpler, cheaper filter solution? So, I kind of was hoping that you double ask, is this for aquaponics or hydroponics? A lot of times for hydroponics, yeah, aqua. Okay, I'll let Dave take that one.
Yeah, bead filters are great. They work really well, especially on the smaller systems. I personally have used them on a nursery system at a commercial operation, and found them to be very effective. Not a lot of cleaning necessary, not a lot of, or daily maintenance, I should say. You still need to flush it regularly, but they are expensive, and a lot of the kind of homebrew filters that you can make can do just as good of a job too. So it kind of falls into how much time you want to spend in cleaning it out versus how much you want to spend on the front end. So you will get a bit of a labor savings over the course of time with the bead filter versus the homebrew systems that you might have to tinker with or clean more regularly. But that's also going to depend on how much fish and what you're growing and such too. So
yeah.
If that answered your question.
Yeah, and in general, what we do is all of our systems, if it's Beado buckets or NFT hydroponically, we all have a type of filter that we use. So a lot of times it's just a standard Arco filter where we have a screen mesh to keep particulates out. just to prevent clogging of emitters and different parts of the irrigation system. So it doesn't matter what system we're running. Usually everything has a filter on it, except for maybe some of the very, very small kit systems like the desktop. And in those kind of cases, what you can do is what they call a filter bag, which you literally put your pump inside of a mesh bag, and that helps keep debris out from being sucked up into the pump. So that's definitely the biggest thing, is making sure you keep debris out of your pumps and equipment. Definitely make your systems work and your life easier. So with that, we've got about 10 more minutes, so definitely keep the questions coming.
I'll mention one thing while we're waiting for questions, and that's we offer specialized school laboratories. We just started doing that a few months ago, where we have designed systems specifically for in-classroom use. So you can buy our standard systems that are NFT systems online, or you can actually call us and we can get you a specialized system that has lighting racks, total control. We have a dolly system underneath the reservoir to make it for easy cleaning in a classroom. The reservoir is sized so that it can go through a doorway if that's necessary. So we kind of have a full hydroponics laboratory that's available to teachers either by system, or we can design an entire room. So we've worked with a few classrooms, or a few schools rather, that had some spare classrooms, science labs that were available, that we completely decked out floor to ceiling in hydroponic equipment, doing a hydro lab. And it's absolutely spectacular. So if you get a chance to check it out, there's a link on our YouTube site, and if you email me, I'll send you the link so you can check it out.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna do one better, Dave, since everybody is here. I'm gonna share my screen quick and just show that, because
oh, can you do that? Okay, great.
Cool system, and it kind of shows an emphasis of some of the kind of design work and things we can do for these schools. So let me see if I can get this to play. Hopefully you can see it on your end, right, Dave?
Yeah, I can see it.
Great. All right. I'm going to let this play quick, and then I may pause at one or two spots just to talk about some of the features that we did for this classroom. Cool. Yeah, and that one's always on YouTube if you want to watch it again. And so that classroom was an old science lab that they decided they got some grant funding and wanted to convert it into a hydroponic classroom. So we literally designed everything. So we designed and got them their water system. We put in circulation fans in that room. The school systems that Dave's are talking about, we will custom weld them here in our shop, and then we powder coat them to match your school colors, whatever color you want. Those things have got a built-in light rack, and then we had sensors that we equipped throughout the room to monitor, temperature, humidity, CO2. We also did a weather station for them that would help collect weather outside the classroom, and then we also had grow lights in there that were on their own controller. So that would have been like high-end, everything decked out, almost every bell and whistle you can think of to go with a hydroponic indoor setup. So that one was a really cool project just up the road. In there, you saw they had 2 NFT systems, 2 Beto bucket systems. They had a miniature aquaponic system. That one was a 100-gallon system. And then they also had pallet racking for flood and drain, and they had a microgreens rack. So they literally had one of everything inside of there. So with that, I see we got about 5 more minutes. Again, you can feel free to ask us any questions. If not, I will definitely make sure I put up the slide with our phone number and my email so you can go through there. While I'm doing that,
Yeah,
you put
I'll
the video link in. Yeah, I know Dave has got everybody who was signed up. We'll make sure you guys get the video link. And then, of course, this question and answer thing, we're recording it, so we'll have, you guys can review it later and get to your answers, and so that way you can go back through there and use them from other uses. So that's always kind of a nice part to do. And there's been some other ones that we try and put up there quite a bit. So
yeah, and I'd just say don't be shy to give us a call, or feel free to give me a call. You've got questions about how do you, some ideas on how you could, use this technology in your classroom for curriculum. One of the great things about hydroponics and aquaponics is it expands your, the science. You can use it as a tool for math. You can use it as a tool for art and history. Agriculture. It connects pretty much to everything within a school, and it just takes a little bit of creativity to do that. So if you're looking for solutions or different ways to teach, feel free to shoot me a message, ask me questions. I talk with teachers all the time and hear about what other teachers are doing in other programs around the state, around the country. And yeah, just don't be shy with that. Also, anything related to greenhouse controls and things like that, I'm happy to answer any questions too. So not just specifically hydroponics.
yep. So let me share that part with the screen. I also put our address on there, so that way if anybody wants to come and visit us, once we get to normal times, that's kind of the idea, or drive by and see the greenhouse at the moment. So
Drive by and honk.
yeah, exactly. Say hi when you drive by. So I'm going to hit share quick. So again, you see on the screen, that's our address and our phone number. There's probably about 25 of us that work here in the office. And so when you call, you'll actually get to talk to like an actual person. So we answer the phones right away. And so that way you guys can do it. We're here Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. East Coast time. And then Fridays, we're here from 8 to 1 p.m. So kind of put that, and I'll leave this up here for the rest of the session.
Let me add one thing, Jake, is part of my job is I'm accessible to teachers, and teachers are available. So don't ever worry about bothering or give me a call. I have my cell phone available, and you can feel free to call me before class, early, or after class at any time that you need some help. That's what I'm here for. I'm available for, and I'm in Central Time Zone, I'm not out of the head office. So if that's helpful, so you can give the office a call and at any time as well. So
cool. I'm going to stop the screen share, and again, I'll make sure. Oh, and emails. Yeah, I'll make sure we put it down. I'm going to put that one right here. Let me get that out. Give me a second for that one so I can type it back up for you guys. So actually, it's kind of cool. On our webpage even, there's a spot where you can ask for help. And so that way you can go through there too. And those get answered as they come in too. But phone calls usually seem to be the fastest way.
Well, while Jake's doing that, I'll just take a kind of an informal survey, ask you, did you guys find this helpful? Was the timing good? If we were going to do this again, would you recommend to do it again? And any areas that we could discuss that we didn't discuss?
And again, while we're waiting for responses on that, feel free to come and do any of our other Q&A sessions. They're free. I put my email on the screen, so hopefully everybody has got that. You can come on and attend them every other Friday. They are at, I believe, 11 o'clock. There's a Zoom sign-up stuff on the website, and you can kind of follow the link that way. So with that, it's 4 o'clock. I'm going to definitely leave that up for a few minutes. Again, thanks everybody for joining us. We know everybody is super busy and got other things going on, but we definitely want to be here to help you guys out as much as we can. With that, I'm going to leave that for probably 30 more seconds. And with that, I will sign off and I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for joining us. And I will talk to you later, Dave.
All right. Sounds great.